What would you realistically shoot from the
Masters tees
at Augusta?
Over 100.
Well, yeah.
If you would have said less than 100, I would have maybe walked out.
115.
I said 120.
I said I'd be happy with 150.
You can break 150.
And maybe it's dumb of me to say this. I think I could maneuver the course okay, but once I get to the greens, it's over. All right. This is the Boys Down Bad podcast, back with another week with a very special guest today. We have our good friend Jeff Harris on. Boys, give it up for Jeff. Jeff, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Jeff works at Opendorse, so he is an expert in NIL, name, image, likeness. And as we have found out over the past couple days talking with each other, we don't know much about NIL at all, and Jeff does. So I think that's kind of the consensus with a lot of people. You know, they know that players are getting paid now, but they don't know what exactly is going on behind the scenes.
Yep.
So Jeff is going to be here to take us through a deep dive of NIL. But first, I wanted to say or ask you, are you all the way bought in on Matt Rule and the Skurs?
I am actually.
Talking to
Yes. So as a crazy huge Husker fan, you know, when Scott got hired, everybody was excited. And then throughout the tenure, you start to see little cracks and stuff like that. But with Matt coming in, he's saying all the right things. Mm-hmm. He's, you know, the adult in the room that, you know, we didn't know we needed until a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good to see the structure. I've been able to interact with some of the staff and stuff over the past few months. It's just a different feel.
Yeah.
So super excited for him. Really excited to see just what the spring game looks like in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Not that that's too indicative of, you know, not that you can tell a ton, but just through how the players are fighting and how the coaching staff is running things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be really interesting. Can't guarantee, you know, with anything how quick stuff is going to turn around, but for the first time in a little while, it feels like we're on the right path, and it's not like just hopes and dreams that are making us think that. There's
100%.
actually like proof in these past, you know, few months that actually line up with, you know, success being down the road.
Yeah. Well, we're excited. We're all the way bought in.
Yeah.
So let's go into kind of your story.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field that you're in right now.
Yeah, so grew up just loving all things sports, knowing that was ideally what I would get to go into in some capacity, whether it's, you know, working in a front office or working for a pro team in another capacity or college or whatever. But after high school, went to University of Nebraska Omaha. Trev was actually the AD there when I was there, which was fun.
Love that.
My sophomore year, I kind of started to know that like sports is what I want to get into, but I knew, at least hearing things, that sports isn't very easy to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to Trev actually and just said, hey, I'm really interested in getting started. Not really sure what I want to do. Marketing was in the back of my head, some other things. And he was like, hey, I'm going to hook you up with somebody. Operations could be a really good way to just, you know, get your foot in. So worked for game day ops at UNO for 2.5 years. And that's mainly setting up, tearing down events, running concession stand, doing a lot of like, it's mostly grunt work, but you get to see how really college sports operates.
Yep.
So I knew coming out of that, that I was on the right path. It was also fun that like every day was something new, because you have all these different sports that are going on. So you might be working a soccer game, then you're working a basketball game or whatever it is. So after graduating from college, I did an internship with the Omaha Storm Chasers.
Okay.
And I would say to anybody out there who's still in school looking for internships, even a negative internship is a great internship. Not saying that my experience with the Storm Chasers was bad by any means. It just taught me this isn't the life that I'm looking for.
What did you do with the Storm Chasers?
So as an intern, they really tossed us into everything. So one day you're working in tickets, one day you're working in promotions, one day you're working in sales. So I love that aspect, like getting to see all the different areas. It just takes a very special person to work in minor league athletics, because you're working 8 to 5 and then 5 to 11.
Yep.
The pay isn't the best. You're working like crazy, especially during the season. You don't sleep much. So after that, as I said earlier, big Nebraska fan, would watch Big Red Wrap Up all the time, and
Our guy Chris.
had to Chris.
Shout out.
Blake Lawrence was one of the guys on there, and I would see every once in a while. They would advertise his company Herdat, and then
Shout out
Herdat.
Herdat.
Shout out Herdat. And then eventually, once they sold Herdat, and they started Opendorse, they started running some stuff for Opendorse on there, and I started looking into it. Actually did a college project on Herdat, which was fun. But I'd reached out to Blake asking about any internships. He said initially nothing was available, but he'd be in touch. And then about like 4 or 5 months later, I never expected to hear back from him. He hit me up and said something was available. So that would have been May of 2015, which is wild.
Sheesh, you're kind of old.
I'm fully aware of that. But I started as an intern, working on the marketing side. So I had a blast. Like, I was able to just write blog posts about whatever I wanted to, about athlete earnings, athlete endorsements. That was still, obviously before the college endorsement side, but it was working on the pro side. Had an article published, or like ESPN took it, and it was talking about how much a tweet would cost if someone wanted to pay LeBron James to post on Twitter. And I think at the time it was like $280K for a single post. I'm sure today it's well over $1 million.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But that was just fun stuff I got to do. And towards the end of my internship, we had a company meeting. And at that time, Opendorse was solely a marketplace for pro athletes. So if you wanted to work with Rob Gronkowski, you could find him, pitch him something, work with him. A lot of the times we were working with brands who knew they wanted to work with athletes. It wasn't so much like fans wanting to do anything. But that's really where it was. And we would have athletes come and ask us, how much could I make? How much are my tweets worth? Or Instagram was brand new at that time, but how much would an Instagram post be worth on my feed? And we could tell them that number, and then their next question was, how do I make more? And that was a little trickier, because it's all about brand building. It's, hey, you need to post cool content consistently that your fans care about. And we kind of wrestle with that. Like, it stinks that we're not able to provide that answer a little clearer. So we started thinking, like, okay, how can we help athletes post cool stuff more often? And we looked across the street. Our office is right downtown next to Bison Witches and Wendy's and all that stuff right across from the Union. And we looked across the street, and you got the University of Nebraska, which obviously we have a really good connection with Blake and Audie, the other co-founder, both playing for Nebraska. And we went to them and we were like, hey, what would you say if we would have alumni of Nebraska post the content that your team is already creating? So photos you're capturing at practice, hype videos you're creating. What if we got them to post that on their feeds? And Nebraska was like, that would be awesome. How much would we have to pay the athletes? And then we go to the athletes. Prince Amukamara was the very first athlete actually to use Opendorse.
Nice.
Really good friends with Blake and Audie. Went to him and a few others, and they were like, that would be awesome, because, I need that stuff to help grow my brand. How much would we have to pay Nebraska? And the great answer was, for both of those, neither. Like, it's a solid win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Athletes get the cool content to post. The school gets that recognition, or we always talked about it too as like a recruiting advantage, where, okay, Prince is in New York now. He has a whole different market that is following him. Let's toss some Nebraska stuff his way. Now those kids in Nebraska or in New York might experience Nebraska for the first time. So started doing that, and then backing up, in that company meeting we had, Blake pitched this idea I immediately walked into his office after that meeting. I was like, I want to be a part of this. So I got brought on full-time soon after, and we started with Nebraska, Clemson, and Michigan as our first 2 schools. So really for the next 4 years, that's what Opendorse was focused on. Like, we did the pro stuff. We're partnered with the NFL Players Association since day one, which that's another cool story, but I'll pass that for now. And we still had that side, but we started working with colleges. So again, like I said, Nebraska, Clemson, Michigan, Texas, like pretty much all the big schools you can think of, we work with them. And then as, around like 2019, it became obvious that athletes were going to start making money in some way. It was always Blake and Audie's dream that that's where Opendorse ends up, but it was never clear that it would ever be allowed that athletes could make money. So at that point, we started to kind of strategize, like, okay, what else is needed in this space? And that's when we started offering education. So we realized the pro market already experiences NIL. Like, again, going back, if you've seen the movie Air yet, that just came out, definitely recommend it. It dives into this stuff really well. But athlete endorsements in the pro side have been happening since the 60s and 70s. Like, that's not new. A product associating themselves with a player to elevate that product's brand. But totally lost my train of thought here. 1 second.
Movie?
Oh, education.
Movie?
Education, sorry.
Education.
Yes. So NIL is new to the college space. It's not new to sports.
Right.
And we had done that for 6 or 7 years prior. So we felt like we had a lot of good knowledge to pass along. So really from 19 to 2021, we really started to focus on educating athletes. So we would go onto campus, talk to them about what the heck is NIL. What does this entail? What to expect, essentially? Because, again, this is brand new to them. It's brand new to the schools, too. So we would be having meetings with the administration and stuff like that to help talk them through it. And then from there, once NIL took effect, we have a disclosure process, which, again, some of your questions might get into, just some of the rules that the NCAA requires. But we have a disclosure software that allows athletes to disclose their information that they're doing in NIL to their school. And then we have a marketplace for college athletes as well, so fans, brands can go work with them very easy. So took that question really long.
That's okay. That was an
I
awesome
love telling
story.
our story. It's fun to also just understand why we do what we do too, and how all of our little products work together. Really, to the end goal is helping every athlete in the world. So
absolutely, that's a really cool story. I had no idea that's how they started and kind of the process to get where you guys are now. Can you tell us, super basic question, what is NIL?
Yeah, so NIL is name, image, and likeness. So everybody on the planet, and until 2021, except student athletes, have the ability to make money selling their name, their image, or their likeness. So think of name, so your name being on the back of a jersey or a T-shirt or associated with a company in any way. Or image is a picture of you, so your face being up on a billboard. If you see one tomorrow from Runza and your face is on it, they can't do that without compensating you.
Right.
And then likeness is like a bobblehead or you being in a video game. It's not you, but it's intended to be you.
Yeah.
So that's really the gist of it. Again, everybody in the world had the ability to do so except college athletes.
Right.
And the issue and the reason for that is that the NCAA claims, or the school claims, and there's merit to this, that their value is linked to their school. So now with NIL, one of the rules is that you can't use your school marks or logo, so like the Husker N or the picture of Herbie or Huskers. You can't wear that on your shirt and get paid by a company, because you are no longer getting compensated for your name, image, and likeness. You're being compensated for your school's name, image, and likeness that they did not sell you.
Interesting. Okay.
So there is circumstances like at Nebraska, if you're a licensed partner of Nebraska, so like Runza is a licensed partner. Any logo you guys see in Memorial Stadium or at the Vault, they're typically like a licensed partner. So if you're working with, if that brand is working with an athlete, those athletes can wear those marks because that company already purchased the rights to use those marks.
That makes sense.
But if you're a random, a random company that has no affiliation with the school, that athlete needs to wear like a red t-shirt or something just completely plain that's not associating them with the school. Because again, NIL is intended for athletes to make money on themselves, not their affiliation with their school.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Cool. I feel like when you bring up NIL at in a conversation with anyone, I feel like there's very polar opinions on it. It's either people love it or they kind of hate it. What are your general thoughts on NIL, and do you think overall it's helping or hurting college sports right now?
Yeah, so at the base, NIL is great for college sports. It's something that should have been around forever. There's a lot of intricacies that jump in there in terms of is it good or not. I think the thing that's really made things interesting with the rollout of it is leading up to July 1st of 2021 is when it was allowed. The NCAA had a bunch of rules that they had developed and gone through, and it would have helped this tremendously in terms of like the Wild West feel that you know, everybody thinks it is right now, which it honestly is. Yeah. But they had a lot of guidelines in place that were good. And then the Alston case was decided in like May or June, which essentially said the NCAA cannot limit the amount of educational aid that a school can provide a student athlete. And that kind of opened it up that you could connect the dots that the NCAA would be open up for more litigation if they would be very restrictive on what athletes could do.
Sure.
It also didn't help that didn't help the NCAA's case that all these states around the country started passing their own NIL laws. So if the NCAA's rules were more restrictive than, say, Texas's law, Texas would have the rights to sue the NCAA for saying, like, hey, why aren't you letting our kids do this? Our state law allows it. So it just opened up this can of worms for the NCAA. So they essentially scrapped all those rules that they had written and came up with about 3 or 4.
Okay.
And those 3 or 4 essentially just say the athlete has to do something in order to get paid. So you can't get paid for just existing. Like, I can't just sign an NIL deal with you and you do nothing. Like, you actually have to show proof that you've completed that activity.
Okay.
It can't be pay for play. So I can't say, hey, Dylan, for every touchdown you score, I'm going to give you $100.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, you're no longer being compensated for your name, your image, or your likeness. You're being compensated for your performance.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, trying to think, the last one, geez, I'm drawing a blank right now. Pay for play. Oh, inducement. So you can't pay an athlete, like a brand couldn't pay an athlete with that being contingent of them going to a specific school or staying at a school. So you can't be like, hey, if you go here, I'll give you $10,000 for an appearance. Like, it can't be linked to that at all.
Okay.
Now, as you've probably seen in the news, there's a lot of stuff that starts to go against what I just said. Because you probably heard things of like kids transferring to schools and then NIL deals attached to those. So there's definitely still murky stuff going on. But all in all, it is great. There are, as with anything, there's still like bad actors out there. Collectives throw a wrench into a lot of it too, and really, we can get into it later, but collectives are just an interesting dynamic, especially if you think of the relationship between collectives and schools, and there's not supposed to be, but
that's a question I have later for you. That
we can touch on that then.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about it a little bit, but like those NIL deals where it's, you know, a kid is getting offered like $9 million to come to this school, or it comes out as, hey, if you come to the school, you're going to get, you know, X amount of dollars. How are those getting worked out? You kind of touched on it, like you have to do something. Is it for like a certain amount of like appearances, posts, like commercials, I guess? How are those like big amounts of money like getting like kind of acted on?
Yep. No, that's a really good question, and it's been interesting to see essentially how these contracts have changed since the very beginning. So like I said, one of the rules is that you can't it can't be inducement for an athlete to go to a school. So at the beginning there were contracts that essentially said, hey, here's, say it's $30,000, and they were giving it to the athletes up front. There's no reason for the athlete to stay at that school if they've already gotten the money. Like,
True.
There's a reason we get paid every 2 weeks or every month at our job and not all of our salary up front.
Right.
So it actually keeps you there at that school. Another aspect is, again, for the inducement thing, people have they've started tossing in that you need to be in Lincoln, Nebraska. You don't need to be attending the school, but you need to be in this area to complete this activity. So if they transfer, they won't be in that city anymore, which means then that contract is broken. But before people were adding that in, if an athlete transferred, if the school or if the brand would potentially cancel that would be a violation, because then they are canceling it because they are no longer a student athlete at that school.
Okay.
So that's an added piece. And really, when it comes down to it, like those large amounts of money, like you said, it is beneficial to the collective or the brand if their intention is, we want this guy at this school. You want to spread that stuff out. There was initially the NCAA had a rule around market rate. So if the going rate for a quarterback to make an appearance is $1,000, if you get paid more than that, that's a red flag. The NCAA would look into it. That all got scrapped. So there's no real limit in which you can piece out these activities, but it's to your benefit to spread it out. So maybe they're getting $5,000 a month. And to earn that $5,000, they do an appearance at a Little League game, they go do a camp, and they post about some random company that's associated with the collective or whatever. So it's pieced out typically. And again, that's to make it so the athletes encouraged to stay at that school in a somewhat legal way.
Right. That makes sense. Can you take us through the process of, say I'm an athlete going to UNL. How do I start getting an NIL deal? And how does that, how am I getting payments? Because I know you guys work a lot with that. Can you take us through the process of just a single NIL deal?
Yep. Yeah. So a way to think about it is you have your collectives and then you have brands and fans. So brands and fans is what NIL was. That's what pure NIL is. So a fan paying for you to come out to their kids' practice to teach them how to pitch or something like that. Or a company wanting to have you be a spokesperson for them. That's what NIL is meant for.
Yeah.
Collectives, their motivation is just get money to the athletes to improve their recruiting class and keep the athletes that are on campus on campus. So you have those two different areas. For the collective, for an athlete to start working with a collective, essentially you just need to be in a sport that has collective support. So that's how collectives typically are working, where there's a collective for football or there's a collective for men's basketball. Some schools have where it's a collective for everybody, or they're picking the top athletes at each sport to try to get them more deals and stuff like that. But essentially it boils down to, if you're on the football team and there's a collective that supports football, you're pretty much included there. Now, if you want to get a brand deal or a fan deal, that's where we talk to the athletes a lot about, you really have to market yourself. NIL is a job.
Yeah.
There are certain athletes that just by existing, people are going to be interested in working with them. But that's really the quarterback, maybe a receiver, a running back. The high-profile positions might have that, if you're the starter and you're the stud on your team.
Yep.
But say you're a defensive lineman or anybody else on the team, essentially you need to go out and sell yourself. So going down, the way we kind of talk about it is, think of the places you already go. So where's your favorite restaurant? Where's your favorite store to go shop at? Go to those places, start a conversation with the manager, let them know you're interested, show them why that you would be valuable to them to like team up with. And that's the thing too, like businesses have been told for years and years and years and years and years, do not pay athletes because they could get in trouble.
Sure.
Now that whole thing's switched, but they still have it in their mind like, hey, we're not supposed to do this. So you have to, everybody pretty much has to educate everybody on what you can and can't do. So that's where, a lot of the time it's an athlete going out, talking to a company, hitting them up in the DM saying like, hey, like say it's not a local company, say it's a national brand, say you're a big Lululemon fan, jumping in the DMs, essentially stating your case why they should be interested in working with you. And then the last piece is like the marketplace, like I mentioned. Like if you go to opendorse.com right now, there's a Nebraska logo on there that you can click on their marketplace along with a lot of other schools, but it takes you to an environment where it's just Nebraska student athletes that you can click on their profiles. We always talk about it that their profiles like their online resume. So it's where athletes can go in, upload any photos they want to help showcase who they are within their sport, outside their sport, what they're interested in, connect their social channels, do all that kind of stuff. And a fan can go in, find them, book, like pitch them a deal. Think of it like Airbnb or any other like online marketplace. It's that same kind of concept. But we encourage athletes to, there's like a website link to their profile that they can then share on their Twitter account, on Instagram stories, just routinely letting people know like, hey, if you want to work with me, go here.
That's cool.
Yep.
I didn't realize you could go on and like book people basically.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so you kind of just talked about it, but like, are these kids, when it comes to like the amount of money they're getting, how are those deals getting like negotiated? Is it because like you can't really have like an agent like in the NFL where you can just say, talk to my agent, here's how much I want. How are those deals and like prices getting like made basically, since you can't really have like an agent?
Yep. So you actually can.
Oh, you
So
can?
yep, college athletes can have agents now. I believe the rule is that if you represent an athlete in college for marketing deals, you can't represent them in the pros in like contract negotiation, like with their team.
Why is that?
I think it's just to essentially prevent agents from like, that's probably a bad word, like grooming athletes to like you work with them early on to then get them into like you're
That
essentially
makes
working
sense,
them
yeah.
in college so then you can work with them in the pros and make a ton of money.
Yes. Okay.
So athletes can use agents. There's not, I would say the high profile athletes definitely do, or they have like advisors. And to negotiation wise, that's the thing that we've tried to help along, over the past year and a half, is just educate the market, the collectives, the athletes on just like what are they worth essentially, like just giving them a starting point. Like for just individual brand and fan deals, like we have an algorithm that we run that essentially gives athletes a starting point of like, hey, okay, you're a quarterback at a Big Ten school, you have 50,000 followers on Twitter, 100,000 on Instagram. Based on all the other deals that have happened through Opendorse in the past, we would estimate that an appearance for you would be X dollars.
That's cool.
So we can at least give them a starting point, because athletes didn't know what to charge, brands didn't know what to give them. And then I think your question's more around like the collective stuff, like these bigger money deals. Now I think athletes are starting to see what other athletes are making, so they're able to take that and be like, hey, I know my buddy is getting $50K from XYZ school, and going in that way. How the process works, I'm honestly not sure, because technically schools and collectives are supposed to be separate. So if it's an athlete comes on an official visit and they talk to the coaching staff, and then after that, then they go talk to the collective, and then they negotiate. How the collective knows how high of a priority that athlete is, I'm sure there's under the table conversations between the collective and the school going on. But really, I mean, you're seeing stuff with the transfer portal for basketball right now with bench guys asking for north of $500K.
Jeez.
Which that's eventually going to level out. But the big thing that I think schools started to realize toward probably halfway through or the end of the 21 season is that, yes, it's important to get transfers and recruits and all that kind of stuff, but you need to recruit your own roster now because kids see what their teammates are making at other schools, or you see like a player coming in that's getting $500K and you're like, I've been here for 3 years and I'm a starter and I'm making, I don't know, like 30 or something, like smaller. Like it starts to ruffle feathers in the locker room. So that's been a big change that I don't think people really realize. Like everybody thinks of like recruiting and all that stuff. And the interesting part too is with collectives is they are not allowed to work or negotiate with athletes before they are at the school, because again, otherwise it's inducement. So like a high school athlete, like you can't actually sign a deal or talk to a high school, or you might be able to talk to them. You definitely can't sign a deal with a high school prospect until they're actually enrolled at the school. So it's almost like it's got to be like handshake agreements or what. That's why it's just so fishy. And it's weird that like if you think, not saying this is the case, just an example because a lot of people are Husker fans, Matt Rule is putting the success of his football team into the hands of a third party, being 1890 or the Big Red Collaborative, and just hoping they take care of the players. Like that is a weird thing.
It's very weird.
Yeah, because like the biggest thing that you see now is like, it seems like the market value for a starting like a 5-star quarterback, it's like either you have no clue what they're getting or it's just an astronomical number, like a $9 million to come. Like it's not like inducement, like you coming to get that money, but it's just weird how like some guys are getting just crazy amounts of money without playing. And it's like how like a 4-star quarterback compared to like a 5-star, how big of a difference is that? Like $2 million, is that like a couple $100,000? Like it's just weird how there's no, I guess because we're so early into NIL where you don't really know what that market value is. So that's what I'm always interested when I see or like hear deals that either happened or like fell through. Like, how are you going to give this kid $9 million even over the course of their career?
Yeah.
And they've only played high school football.
It's easy to see, like in the pros, say in the NFL, a quarterback will hold out for a certain amount of money to get paid, and that'll kind of set the market.
Yep.
So it'll be set at that number, and then anyone, signing after that. But in college, it's just, like you said, the Wild West. Like, you could ask for anything, and you could get anything. It's just crazy.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, in pro sports, all that stuff is public information. Like, you can go online right now and be like, hey, what's the contract for Mike Trout or whoever you want to, and you can see all the contract information. These are private deals that they do not need to be made public. And it goes back to what are you worth? It's what's someone willing to pay you. You might have a school that might be a little more desperate, or they see like if we get this guy, it opens us up to maybe getting this guy, and this guy. So like, even if this recruit doesn't pan out, maybe he brought along buddies that will. So that's the thing. And then like you hear about the quarterback that committed to Florida that then backed out. That's where, like, do the collectives have the money to actually back up the numbers that are getting tossed out there?
Right.
And they may be able to cover the first year. And then do they have the fundraising ability to go out and get the rest of that money?
Right.
Essentially, like, okay, say it is $10 million over 4 years, and it's $1 million the first year, 2.5 the next. I'm getting myself in trouble with math, doing it in my head real quick. But essentially, like, if it's stair steps, you can cover the first year. Maybe you can cover the second, but then, like, you're just hoping that you can do it the next.
Right.
And that's where things get, a little interesting. But, yeah, these big money deals, they're hopefully the collective or whoever is able to come through with it, but that creates an interesting situation.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but players get, like, valuations, like their NIL evaluation is X amount. Do you know how they're coming up with these numbers? Because if they don't know exactly what these deals are being proposed to them are, how are they Is it based off other athletes who they know have made a certain amount? Do you know?
Yeah, so I mean, I can speak specifically to how we do it. I know On3 has their evaluations. They do have like a NIL deal tracker, I believe, on their website. So if they're made aware of a deal, like they can kind of put that into whatever formula they have. But yeah, we base it off of, because like I said, we have a whole compliance system for NIL. So athletes around the country are submitting their information to us. So we know exactly what amount of money is exchanging hands because it's coming through our system or they've disclosed it to us. So we're able to take that information and again be like, okay, a quarterback in this conference who's say a senior that's been had a lot of recognition, a lot of awards or whatever. We compare them against other quarterbacks in that same conference who have similar standing, and maybe a few of them have done certain deals that then we can be like, okay, this athlete most likely is going to be around here. Mm-hmm. The thing that's tough about like year-long projection valuations is like that's all it is a projection. Like if you go to On3 right now, you might see the Manning kid is like 3-point-some million. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean necessarily that he's made 3-point-some million. It's essentially saying like his standing as a quarterback at Texas and with his brand, they would expect him to make around that amount of money.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, like all these deals are getting made with like companies. What's one of like the funniest or like coolest NIL deals that you've seen? Like DeColdis Crawford had the HVAC deal. Like what are some of like the cooler kind of like funny ones that you've seen?
Yeah, that one was fun. Unfortunately, he's not with the team anymore. Yeah. But Clear Cover is a company that they started working with. I believe it's athletes with just a cool story. So it's not the. I mean, they did work with Adrian Martinez, mm-hmm. But they also work with like a Division III athlete. Mm-hmm. And those athletes are getting 4 or 5 figures for that, and it's literally just those athletes telling their story, a tough time in their life that they got over. And again, that's the cool part of NIL. Like it's helping athletes. We also have a really cool one of an athlete where she thanked us afterwards, and she said, growing up, I lived out of my mom's car. Mm-hmm. Through NIL, I was able to buy my first car.
That's awesome.
Like that's cool stuff there. One that just blows my mind is Snapchat was doing a deal where if athletes just use Snapchat, not promote a certain brand associated with Snap, like literally just posting on Snapchat, they would get paid 4 figures.
Really?
Wow.
Because Snapchat just wants more usage on their app.
Sure.
Like it makes sense. But that's just like
posting stories.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the thing of it, it's like that's a super organic, like that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It's up to Snapchat to prove the return on investment there that it's worth it. But like from an athlete's perspective, like, and again, what we always teach them is like, hopefully you're working with companies that if you're scrolling on someone's feed, you don't notice, like it's not out of the ordinary. You're not like, oh, I'm on Dylan's Instagram. I'm like, okay, wait. He has never gone hunting a day in his life. Like, what? Why is he working with Cabela's and he has like a hunting vest? Like, that's not genuine, mm-hmm. and it's probably not going to do that well because your followers can tell that it's like that's not
forced, very forced. Yeah.
Yep. So, those are just some cool ones. There's a lot of fun stuff happening around the country. I know there was I think it was Degree working with walk-ons. So there was a walk-on for FDU. In the NCAA tournament, mm-hmm. that after they got eliminated, they signed him to a deal, and it's just like sharing his walk-on story and stuff like that. That's cool. So yeah, there's some fun stuff happening out there.
Yeah, it's definitely provided more opportunities. Do you think there will be any type of rule changes in the near future with NIL and with the NCAA, or do you think it's kind of just a thing that they're gonna let go for a while?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting right now. There's, I think the thing you'll see is more states pushing, and that's really how NIL came to be in the first place. Like I think California might have been one of the first that essentially said like, hey, in 3 years, we're doing this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of other states hopped on, and then the NCAA was their hand was forced. I think you're going to see that too. I know a lot of people are hoping like, oh, maybe there's going to be a federal bill that's passed that regulates all this stuff. It doesn't sound like that's anywhere close. The NCAA has put out like different interpretations of their rules or any questions that people have. But even at that, they haven't shown as of right now to really enforce a ton of stuff. They have done a little. The Cavender twins, who are two pretty big ones, female basketball players at Miami, that was in the news about a month ago that they were it was not even NIL related, actually. They were taken to dinner by a booster, which a booster associated with a school talking to a potential student athlete has never been allowed. So the media took it as like, oh, an NIL infraction. Like, it wasn't.
And this happened before they were at Miami?
Yes.
Okay.
So they had dinner, like, as they were at Fresno State, then they were looking at other schools.
Okay.
They went and had dinner with the booster.
Gotcha.
And then that's what the violation was. It wasn't that they did anything NIL related that wasn't allowed.
Right.
So we'll see how things go. Again, I think states are going to be what does it. There's currently a bill in Arkansas that would allow the school essentially to be involved with the collective. So that's an aspect, again, that I think other states will start to hop on board with. Because, like I said, the interesting piece is you're a football coach and your entire roster is dependent on this person that you aren't supposed to have
That seems
contact
so
with.
weird to me.
Yep.
But, interesting. Okay.
So if like our podcast or like another business wants to get started with NIL, they've never done it. How do the businesses go about getting that set up?
Yeah, so Opendorse is a really easy way to start. Again, going on and finding athletes you want to work with. Again, you can pitch them. If you want to have them just send out, an Instagram post, a Twitter post about the podcast, you could do that. Pretty affordable. Like, you can also determine what kind of athlete you want to work with. Like, do you want to work with a player on the football team? Do you want that to be a starter? Probably a little bit more expensive. Do you want to work with like a walk-on? Would be a lot more affordable. If you're looking for exposure, obviously start looking at like how many followers do they have?
Yeah,
or, like,
right.
what kind of content do they post? Do they line up with you? That kind of thing. Again, or do you want to work with another sport? I would recommend that as a way to just get your feet wet. And if you've interviewed any of the guys that are currently at the school, I would recommend starting with them because they've been on the podcast.
That's a good idea.
And just reach out to them and be like, hey, love to have you promoted. Here's $50 or whatever it is that you're willing to pay, and then just grow it from there. 402 Creamery is one in town that's doing it very, very well. Muchachos is another one that does it very well.
They've been killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like 402, like they have, they've worked with the volleyball team, had them come out to their store, do an autograph signing, and like 402 Creamery gets to associate themselves with Nebraska volleyball players. They get the added foot traffic from people wanting to work with the volleyball team. They're doing some stuff with the women's golf team right now. There's cool things out there, but yeah, if the easiest place to get started is just hop on Opendorse and scrolling through the marketplace and finding an athlete you want to work with.
Nice. Well, go to opendoors.com.
There you go. Easy as that.
Quick little plug. Another question I had, we heard about it a lot with the Oscar Sheboy stuff.
Yep.
Guys who are coming in, not from the U.S. What's the ruling around that?
Yep.
Are they not able to get paid in the U.S.?
Correct. And that's not an NCAA law. That's not a school policy, restriction. That's not a state law. That is a federal government immigration visa law. So that's been something that it's been a very popular topic for about the past year because schools are trying to figure out how can they help their international athletes. The purpose of NIL was to give the student athlete, the same rights as their counterpart across the hall who's a music major. Like, that person across the hall could make and sell their music. Student athlete at the time couldn't. So with NIL, it allowed the student athlete to do the same thing. Now, an international student who comes over, they aren't able to do NIL either. Like, they aren't able to make money either, because based on their visa, it's only supposed to be for education purposes. You're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to be over here to essentially make money.
Okay.
Now, I believe they are able to like work on campus, but in terms of working with a company, that's not allowed. Now, a lot of places or a lot of schools and compliance offices are trying to work through like, okay, passive income's allowed, and passive income is essentially you're not doing anything to earn it. Like you sold your NIL rights to somebody, like they're making T-shirts or something like that. Like you're not actively going and doing a camp, or you're not actively posting somewhere. So schools are trying to figure out ways of doing that. Some creative ways are similar to the Kentucky player, flying athletes overseas, having them do a clinic, them getting paid over there. So collectives are getting a little creative on that stuff, but the scary thing is again, it's immigration law. So if they do something that is against their visa, they don't just sit out games. They get deported and kicked out of the country. So like, it's serious stuff that you really have to think through. Like, as an athlete, is it worth it? Like, yeah, I could make a few bucks here, but if I get caught, I can't come back.
Right.
So that's something too. I could see something potentially federally passed around that. But that changes visa status for everybody, because you can't just have it be like, oh, here's an asterisk, it's only allowed for student athletes.
Right.
Like, you would have to afford that to all people with that same visa status.
Good point.
Yep.
Another question I had, aside from, I'm assuming football is the most predominant in the NIL at UNL, but what other sports are gaining a lot of traction in the NIL at UNL that you've seen?
Yeah. I mean, obviously volleyball is a real big one. Men's basketball. There is a women's track athlete who's gotten really popular. And that's the fun thing, to just see it start to get spread across a lot of the sports. Because that was, when we were talking to schools early on, before NIL was even like legal, the football coaches got into it, the men's and women's basketball coaches got into it, but then like the track and field or soccer or softball, they're like, our athletes aren't going to make any money. But it's been cool to see that that's not exactly correct.
Right.
Like, if you're marketable, you're marketable. Like, if you have a presence online, if you are someone sees value in attaching to their brand, you can make money. Like, it doesn't matter. There was this is kind of a tangent, but a Michigan basketball player last year, I think, 8th, 9th, 10th dude on the bench. He rarely ever played, but he was valued as one of the most highest valued NIL guys in the conference. And people were like, that is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, he never plays. He doesn't have value. Like, but he has a bunch of followers on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Like, that's what NIL is supposed to be about.
Yeah,
it's not about your
absolutely.
play on the field. Your play on the field helps, but you're compensated based on how marketable you are.
Sure.
So that allows it so these athletes that aren't in those primetime sports, like, NIL is still for them. It may take a little bit more work. You might have to try a little harder to get the attention of the brand you want to work with. But it's definitely happening. So, yeah, it's been fun to see. Obviously you see the football stuff, the men's and women's basketball, but seeing those other sports start to take advantage, it also helps the other athletes in those sports be like, oh, okay, maybe I could do this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very cool. My last question is, I know we've talked a lot, and I don't know if you can find anything, but what is something a person on the outside might not know about NIL that you've found very interesting throughout the time working in it?
Ooh. This is a tough one because I've, only known it.
Yeah,
I've
true.
never been on the outside of it. Let's see. I mean, the collective stuff is wild. I think learning a lot about, what's a 501(c), like a charitable nonprofit. That's what, when you get season tickets to Nebraska. A lot of that stuff is like tax deductible. At least I think it used to be.
Yeah.
Collectives are trying to do that. They're trying to make it so like, all right, donor A, you are donating to the school and you got a tax deduction. So just also donate to us and you also get it.
Okay.
But trying to justify if a collective is actually a nonprofit isn't as easy as people think. So like some are, some aren't. Like I feel like the government's going to eventually crack down if it is
I
wrong.
would assume, yeah.
But there's just so many things that go into it. I
Sure.
think one thing to know too is, when a brand or a fan is working with an athlete, they want to return. Like they want their products to sell more, or they want to have that cool experience. When a collective is working with an athlete, they just want to get money to athletes. Like their ROI is that the athlete performs essentially or
Right.
stays at that school. So the motivations for each one is different. So that's where what we try to we kind of struggle with and we try to educate athletes on is like, okay, athlete on the football team through the collective does a appearance for say $5,000. They are nowhere near worth that much to like the general market. Because again, we've worked with pro athletes for years and years. We see what even pro athletes make for that kind of stuff. And when we're working with, when a brand comes to us and is interested in working with athletes, like their value might actually be like $500. So the brand goes to the athletes like, hey, I want to pitch you 500, and the athlete's like, nah, I just made 10 times that
Right.
working with the collect. So there's like this disconnect of what's reality, but again, it's whatever someone's willing to pay you. But that's been something that it's been interesting to just see roll out. Is just again, if all you're doing is earning money from a collective, you don't realize what it's actually like. So like if an athlete does go pro, it'll be interesting to see their eyes open that like they're not actually worth as much as
True.
they're getting right now. Like would a 5-star quarterback actually be worth $15 million over 4 years or $10 million or whatever? Like, or is this just like a weird playground that has no rules that
True.
is super inflated?
Probably a wake-up call
Yeah.
at some point, but
Yeah.
very cool. You got any more?
Nope, that's all I got.
Chris, you got something back there? You just been hanging out.
I was going to ask about the international, but he covered it.
Nothing else.
No.
Nice effort.
Well, I was there, so I know a lot about it already from our
Sick.
show.
Yep.
Sick.
I'm just saying.
Cool. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Shout out opendoors.com. Learned a lot. Hope you guys learned something too.
Yeah. Thanks
So,
for having me. This
absolutely.
was great.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Awesome conversation with him. He's a genius when it comes to NIL. I know nothing, so
No, I don't. I still don't really
I mean, everything he said
makes sense.
makes sense.
in a
And
vacuum.
I'll probably forget it in a week. But thank you to Jeff.
It's a big process.
It is a big process and a lot goes into it. And happy that he took the time to come on. The Masters happened this week.
Yeah.
It was an okay tournament. I don't know. Had some good stories. Sam Bennett, amateur,
Yeah.
played out of his ass. Just incredible.
Could be any amateur.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you go there, you shoot?
Well, I had this. Was I talking? Yeah,
Yeah.
we were talking. What would you realistically shoot from the Masters, the
Masters
the
tees?
at Augusta? Do you think?
Over 100?
Well, yeah.
If you would have said less than 100, I would have maybe walked out.
115?
I said 120.
Well,
You
I've
said
heard
ish.
I've heard a crazy stat where they will let you drop the ball in the middle of the green, putting for birdie, and they say you won't break 90 because those greens are so sloped and everything. You will put it off the green, then you can actually chip, and you'll still struggle.
Yeah.
And to break 90,
I said I'd be happy with 150.
you can break 150.
There are just certain holes where I have no chance of getting where you need to be. 13, I have no chance.
13?
You have to hit a draw.
Well, yeah, That's fine.
Okay, then I'm
Okay, but you still
300
so you
yards
hit it
out.
left and then you drop.
Yeah, I just feel like and maybe it's dumb of me to say this, I think I could maneuver the course okay, but once I get to the greens, it's over.
Are you walking or are you riding a cart?
I don't think you can.
Walking
ride
would make it
carts.
hard. I know, but like realistic, like if
I
you
would say
could ride a
walking.
cart, if
Yeah.
you're okay, so walking would make it even harder
Sure.
That's where
because
I
your
said
body's gonna
150.
break down.
Like I would be fine with.
Like all those hills you're walking up and down, it's gonna
yeah.
it's
I don't
gonna break
really-
you down.
Do we get a caddy?
You do get a caddy,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'd be
they'll
fine
help
walking.
you. They'll help you.
Yeah.
I still think 150.
I think you could break 150.
I mean, if you hit it to the wrong if you hit it to the wrong part of the green, you're screwed.
Yeah,
You have no chance.
I mean,
Like,
that's what
you're
I'm
happy
saying,
with
like,
3 putts.
that's why
Yeah.
they say they'll let you drop for birdie on the middle
We
of
also
the green,
said-
and you'll still struggle.
At what distance, starting from the hole, could you win the Masters from?
Like you get to place the ball in the fairway or what?
Anywhere.
You can place it.
How
anywhere.
far from the hole could you win the Masters?
win the
so
tournament?
you'd have to shoot what, 13 on?
You'd have to shoot 13 under.
We we went through a process on this one. Peters originally said 60 yards,
Originally said 50 yards.
50 yards, and then he went to
I want to see what Chris says
yeah,
first.
yeah. Think about it. Actually, think about it.
Like, my answer will like shock you. So like, don't like say a certain number just because you want to like sound like.
Well, if I'm trying
If-
on the green,
Yeah,
Like,
that's what
We said 40
even
feet.
even
40 feet.
chipping, like I'm not trying to chip on
Yeah,
at that
you,
course.
you should not chip. on
I
that
should
course.
not chip there.
I said 40 feet, and that was what we had agreed on.
I think
40 feet.
Because
So you're saying you're going to basically 2-putt every par 5 for birdie.
Well, I mean, you have 4 days. Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
so you're saying you're dropping 40 feet for one.
correct.
Yes.
So you're hitting one from
You're
40
yes,
feet.
You're
away.
hitting
Okay.
one from 40 feet.
Because you have
Ooh,
to
he
think.
thinks farther.
Okay, now I think you could probably chip then. I thought you meant like you're chipping for birdie or anything.
I think
if you're dropping
depending
there
on
for
your game,
one,
I think I could. I'm better at chipping than putting, so I could probably chip
yeah,
20 yards.
20 or 30 yards. Could you still shoot 13 under?
I don't know.
That's a big question.
I think you have to start on the green.
Because you got to think the par threes are going to be difficult because you got to go
That means you got to go up
Up.
and down for par.
up and
up and down for birdie.
Up it. You got to go up and then 2-putt
To make
for a
par.
par. Which, I mean, I can't even do that on some of the courses I play now.
Yeah. You could probably do it on 12. 4 and 6 would be hard. What's the other par 3? 16 would be hard. Yeah.
Because at 40 feet, like,
you got to take advantage of the par fives.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because even
You
at
basically
40
have to
feet,
eagle.
there are some holes where, like, you're barely on the green.
Okay,
Like,
but
40 feet might not.
40
if I can-
feet, okay, then you could still putt the ball off the green. You could degreen it.
Correct.
And then
True.
you're screwed.
But, like, it was more of,
Your
like,
advantage just went away.
yeah, it was more of, like, a distance where you have a chance, but it's also not, like, saying, like, from 5 feet. Like, that's just dumb. Like,
Yeah.
I would hope from 5 feet, from 10 feet, from 15 feet, you could win.
Yeah.
I don't know. They
But,
missed
like,
a lot of
40
5-footers.
Well,
Professionals
yeah, but
did.
if you're
If you're starting
Yeah,
at
with
5
yeah.
feet, I can hit it 2 feet, and I'm halfway there on a par 5. I'm making
You make
3 at
double eagle.
worst.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say
40
I would-
feet.
I'm
yeah.
going to say 20 yards is what I
20
could win
yards?
the Masters at.
I like my chances starting on the green.
See,
That'd
I
be
would,
hilarious if you start 40 feet away from every hole on your first shot and you
Yeah.
still can't.
I mean, at that
How
point,
humiliating would that be?
you're playing putt-putt.
yeah,
at Augusta.
literally.
The hardest putt-putt you've ever played in your life.
Yeah.
With the biggest slopes you've ever seen in your life.
And it's maybe my thought process would change if I actually saw the greens, because
I might say it might be closer. I might need
if you
to be-
actually saw them.
It
Yeah.
might be closer.
Oh yeah, right.
I might
what I've
move that
heard.
from 10 up to 10 feet.
Because you see it on TV, and it's like, I could
From
do
what
that.
I've heard, yeah, it's hard.
So anyway, went off a little tangent there, but it was a good tournament, I guess. It was fine.
Not really too much excitement down the end. Rom
No.
dominated. He's so good. And he
He's
got
so good.
screwed with the draw.
He did.
Because, like, he played
I think he went early late.
Early late, which was the bad one because he played.
You wanted to go late early.
And then he still had to play Saturday a little bit. Finish
Yeah.
his second round on Saturday morning with bad
Play
weather.
30 holes on Sunday.
30 holes on Sunday.
Whew.
And he started with a 4-putt double bogey.
Yeah. That doesn't
He
help either.
4-putted
Yeah.
green number 1.
If Rom
by
is
the way.
4-putting,
From 20 feet, he 4-putted.
Yeah.
Just mind you that.
that's
Makes
Yeah.
you
makes
think.
might be
me
20
think a little
feet.
harder.
But yeah, starting with the double bogey and still winning by 4 strokes.
I think Peter's thought came to fruition a little bit with Brooks. Played 3 rounds, great.
Yeah.
Couldn't close it out on the 4th.
I get like it's kind of a lazy, in a sense, it's kind of a lazy take because like I feel like it's live golf. It's 54 holes. He was the 54-hole leader, but also I do think there's some realistic like thought going into he had to play an extra 18 holes where usually you're done. Also, he had to play extra holes on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
usually the tournament, your like prep, you go into it saying if you're live, you're playing 3 days.
Yeah.
You're not even thinking about Sunday.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was strictly that. I think he got a really good draw early, and then he had to play in the weather, which
Yeah.
that's probably the bigger factor. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he played bad on Sunday. Like he didn't choke.
Couldn't make any birdies.
Yeah.
That's what it
he went
came
like
down to.
22 holes without a birdie.
He got
Yeah.
some bad bounces.
Mm-hmm.
And Rom just was steady and then just took over.
Yeah.
The talent of Rom just took over eventually. But yeah,
It was a good tournament.
Tiger looked bad. Did you see that clip on Twitter of
Yeah.
him walking around?
Yeah. Scary.
I don't know how much longer he's going to make it.
But he made another cut.
Yeah, 23rd consecutive. Ties the record, I
Made
think.
another cut. I don't know. Could
mean-
he? Do you think he could win another major realistically?
No.
Yeah,
Too many good young guys.
if you get the right course. I mean,
It would probably be Augusta.
I don't think it'd be Augusta.
I think it'd have to be Augusta. And he has to play in perfect weather now. Like, it has to be
Yeah.
like 70.
I mean, like at the Open, it's
And
pretty
no
flat.
rain. The Open, yeah, but
I
the
mean, if
weather
that-
could
yeah,
be terrible.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
If
could
if
be.
you get a nice day at like St. Andrews where it's an easier walk, the only thing with Augusta, like
Yeah, the walk is bad.
he can get around that course with his mind. It's not hard for him to like mentally get there. I just think that Sunday, if he's got to like chase somebody down, and it's
Mhm.
against like when he won it in 2019, Molinari made mistakes down the stretch where I just don't think you're gonna get a John Rahm, a Scheffler, a Rory who makes those same mistakes to get him into a spot where like his knowledge gives him a real advantage.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so here's a question for you. You
Okay.
get Rahm, Scheffler, and Rory for the next 10 years. Who wins more majors, those three or the field? So the next 10 years, are you taking Rory, Rahm, and Scheffler? Or are you taking every other golfer in the world to win more majors?
Oof. That's a good question.
I feel like you.
I think I'm taking Rahm, Rory, and Scheffler. They're all still young.
Yeah.
10 years, they'd be about 38.
Because who's
I mean,
I
you
mean,
have JT,
JT, Speed,
Spieth, Morikawa, Homa.
Homa,
but you're also getting like
Hovland,
Koepka.
Koepka,
But he could be on his way out. DJ's getting older.
DJ.
It's hard for me not to say. Well,
The next 10 years, that's a long time.
I mean, you're not going to get.
I would-
I feel like at most you're going to get.
Those three are going to
Two.
win 2 of the 4 majors, I think, every year. They're just that good.
So you're saying the field has to win 21.
Yeah.
I would-
Even if each of them, even if they
Yeah,
win one,
I'm
they
gonna
have to
say the
win
field.
10.
I'm going to say the field because you can just split those.
Yeah. I think I
You're
would
gonna
say
take the field?
I would take the
I
field.
think I'd take those 3.
Just because you're splitting, like, you can go 20 and 20
Yeah.
to where,
Yeah, because over the next 10 years, there'd be 40 majors.
yeah, I think you have to take the field.
Yeah, you have
Because you're
to.
not saying, like, you have to have JT. You're not saying, like, it has to be these, like, even
Mhm.
10 golfers.
Yeah.
Because, like,
But, like, the field, like, there's only about 10 other golfers that can compete with those guys.
but then you get, like,
Realistically.
what if, like, a Sam Bennett like somebody comes out of nowhere, or there's like a guy that's coming up the ranks that we don't know about yet. That's gonna be.
Yeah, but those I just don't know. I mean,
I
like a
think
Sam
it's
Bennett, it's fun to watch him like Thursday, Friday get up there, but then they get paired with one of those two, and it's like it's a different level in a major.
But he outplayed Scotty Scheffler on Thursday, Friday.
That's Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend hits, and then
I'm
you're
still
looking
taking the
at
field.
I'm taking the field.
Okay.
You just have you have so many options to split the majors, because that's all you have to do is split it.
Yeah, and Rory's getting up there.
Rory is older. Rahm isn't super. He's not old, but he's
Rahm's 27 or 28.
28, I think.
And Scheffler's
He
like
seems
25.
way older than 28.
I know.
Yeah, I thought
That's why I
And
said
Scheffler
10
seems
years.
way older than 25.
He's probably
We're the same
he
age.
He might be.
I think he's like
26.
26.
He might be
27.
20. Yeah,
That's
but
so
he's not that
crazy.
much
No.
older than us.
So
That's a lot of good hypotheticals. Or
It's
just
interesting to
questions, I
think
guess.
about.
Yeah.
Like those three are that good that makes you actually question like how many majors are those three going to win compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
I just think if you take the field, like if one year you get screwed, like if one year you lose it because they win 3 or 4, there's going to be a year where they might not win any. Like what if they
Could
get
be.
hurt? But that, like, you just kind of have to get back to that. You know, they get 3 one year, you get 3 or 4 the next, and then I don't know. Like Rory missed the cut. What's stopping like a weird scenario where all 3 miss the cut, and then you're screwed?
It could happen, but it won't. They're just that good.
Yeah, I just feel like
One of them will contend in every major for the next 10 years. Be in like the top 5 going into Sunday.
knowing there's a chance that all 3 miss the cut. I know it's a slim chance, but then
Very slim.
you have 100% odds for that major. So that's
True.
why
Yeah.
I'm saying the field. It's not like the field, but it's
It's a good
The field.
question. Definitely.
Yeah.
Do we have any down bads this week?
I don't.
Nice
yeah,
effort.
you do.
Nice effort.
You have
Chris's
one.
attitude,
Chris has been.
complaining that he had to be up at 6:30.
Yeah, and
I
we were
did.
both up earlier than him today, and we are
Okay, but
completely
you
fine.
guys do that every day. I don't do it every day.
so.
So you should be like,
So I'm tired.
Sure,
I don't wake
I'm
up at 6
tired. I'm not complaining about it.
but you should be more rested from the previous day. If you're doing it consistently,
Maybe we go to bed a little bit earlier.
Well,
How about that?
I could. Yeah.
How about we do that?
Yeah.
How about we
give it a
take,
try.
I could try it.
Take charge of your life for once.
I probably should start doing that.
Yeah. Any Hinge updates?
No.
Nice effort there.
I've
Maybe
been so
go to
busy.
bed a little earlier and
I haven't
things
been
might
on
start
Hinge in a
changing.
while, actually.
'Kay.
I just haven't had time.
it's fine.
Just been busy.
Yeah.
Busy
Super
doing
busy.
life.
Yeah. Really busy.
You know?
It's great.
Busy doing life.
Trees at Augusta are down bad.
Yeah, that was scary,
Literally.
actually.
Pace
They are
of
down.
play.
Pace of play. Cantley and Hovland getting flamed on social media.
Yeah.
For
And actually-
playing extremely slow.
Fans going to the Masters, like, do you know what happens with that? Like, so, like, you get assigned a day to go.
Yeah.
If you win the tickets, you get assigned a day. So, like, if your day was
Oh.
Saturday, you saw the course for 3 hours and then you were done.
I
Like,
didn't
they
know
don't
that.
let you come back Sunday.
That was going to be
the
my
new
question.
wave.
Was can those people go watch the 3rd round?
No. It's your
Okay.
day.
I wasn't sure because I
So,
knew
like-
it was
Did
like
they do
you
any
get,
accommodations though with that?
What do
this
you mean?
year?
probably not.
No.
I
So people that went Saturday got to see Saturday, and then that's it.
because I knew they did it by day, but I wasn't sure if it was like that day's round or that.
It's just that specific day.
Yeah, that's
So you're
Yeah,
out of
that
luck.
sucks. They
should fix
ho-
that.
hopefully because the weather. They knew all week that the weather was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Hopefully they had that in their mind, like this might happen.
Yeah,
and they
so we
weren't
got to get there
blindsided.
early,
Yeah.
walk the course to at least see all of it.
Yeah.
You would hope.
Yeah.
But then you got to get your merch because they,
Gotta get
you
the
know,
merch.
like when do you go get your merchandise? Because if the tournament gets
You
called that day,
Yeah.
they close everything, and then you're like, I didn't get any merchandise.
Yeah.
You have to go early regardless of weather because you have to get.
Yeah.
If worst case is the weather's bad and you don't get anything. Because
Yeah,
then
then it
because you
sucks.
can't take pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
have
you can, but you can take like a
Yeah. You have
Just
to
like
like
a little
wait
camera or whatever?
Yeah.
Right.
You can't take your phone or any like real nice camera.
Yeah.
So then you got no merch. You saw barely any golf. You got to go to the merch
Feel
center
so
early.
bad. Spend a ton of money to get there.
Yeah.
And hotel and everything. and-
Yeah. You actually win the lottery, which is like hard to do.
Yeah.
Because everybody enters that,
Mhm.
and then you're screwed.
Dang. Didn't know that. Feel bad for those people.
So that sucks for those guys.
Any other down bads?
Nope.
It was a pretty slow news week.
It was.
Patrick Reed played good. I hated that.
Yeah, he
Hated
did play
Phil
well.
played well.
Phil played really well.
Yeah.
Best round by
Anyone over
Anyone
50?
over 50?
Yeah, best finish, yeah.
nice.
I was
Nice.
hoping we could talk about Patrick Reed playing bad, but can't do that.
Nope. Unfortunately, he's not a down bad this week. He was pretty quiet this tournament.
He was, although he was decked out in his Aces
yeah,
gear.
I know. I hate that.
Only live guy to do that, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Classic.
Phil was.
Phil, yeah.
Oh, was that symbol
Yeah.
of his team or whatever?
Mhm.
Okay.
I think DJ had it on his as well.
I didn't see a single shot of DJ.
Yeah,
That's
they
another thing
didn't-
that sucks about Masters. Their coverage is shit.
Yeah.
But also, like, they weren't going to put a ton of live guys on the coverage unless they were playing in contention.
No, but
Or-
like if you look at the scheduled coverage, like
Yeah, it's
Sunday
bad.
starts at 2 p.m. and the leaders tee off at 1. What is that?
Well, didn't coverage start in the morning and then they flipped?
Yeah, but like originally, if like the tournament goes on
Yeah.
as
Oh,
scheduled,
yeah.
like Sunday would have started at 2 p.m. and the leaders tee off at 1.
Yeah, that's-
So you missed the first
we
3
can't
holes
have
of the
that.
leaders
Can't
on
have that.
Sunday. What? Like, especially when it's so hard to go. Like, I understand if like you can buy tickets randomly and go, but like public can't do that. So
Right.
why not show it? People that can't get tickets want to see it.
I don't know. Should we do roulette?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
What are we at?
11 for Trevin. 24.
What's the money at?
I think like 20.
Ooh.
24.
Yeah.
16.
This would be for 15 each. Tom did not send a number.
Tom did not send a number. That is unfortunate for Tommy. Well, it looks like Tommy gets 22 or 20.
All right. Come on, 2.
Where is 16? Oh, it's not even.
25.
Oh, 2 was close.
I think that's back to back. Yeah.
Where
That
was
is back to back.
16's on the opposite end of the board. Nice.
2 weeks in a
Freaking
row, it's been a red 25. Is that right?
Yep.
Right next to the 2, and I've had 2 both weeks. That's so classic.
Maybe third time will be a charm next week.
Nah,
Yeah, take 25 next week.
no, I will not do that.
No, I thought you took 2 last week.
I did.
Yeah, and you took 2 this week, so take 2 again.
Okay. I
Third
will.
time's a charm.
Probably will, yeah.
And then it'll be 21.
Who will be 21. Shout out Jeff and Open Doors again for coming on the pod today. Awesome conversation about NIL. Anything else, boys?
Nope.
Let's get out of here.
Peter's got to get to the kid.
He does.
Yep.
All right. This is the Boys Down Bad podcast. I'm Dylan.
Peters.
Chris.
Have yourselves a top 10 weekend.